I'm about to show you plants growing faster and healthier than anything in soil, using nothing but tap water. Sounds impossible? That's exactly what I thought until I saw roots exploding with growth in ways that defy everything we learned in school. The question isn't whether this works, but why nobody told you sooner. Plants have been pulling off the ultimate magic trick for millions of years, and most of us never noticed. They create food from thin air, sunlight, and water. But here's the kicker: soil isn't actually part of that recipe. Wait, what? Your middle school science teacher probably never mentioned this detail. Plants don't eat dirt. They never have. Soil is just the delivery guy, bringing nutrients to the roots in liquid form. Take away the middleman, and you got something pretty revolutionary. This is hydroponics. Growing plants in water with nutrients mixed right in. No dirt required. The whole system works because roots are basically tiny straws with an attitude. They're designed to slurp up liquid nutrients, whether those nutrients come from decomposed leaves in forest soil or from a carefully measured solution you mixed in your kitchen. Roots don't care about the source. They just want their liquid lunch served fresh. Most plants need 3 things to survive: light, water, and nutrients. Notice how soil didn't make that list? That's because soil is just one way to deliver nutrients, not the only way. And honestly, it's not even the most efficient way. Here's where things get interesting. When you grow plants in water, you're actually giving them room service instead of making them forage for food. In soil, roots have to stretch and search, competing with microbes and dealing with inconsistent nutrient distribution. Some areas are nutrient-rich, others are basically plant deserts. It's like trying to eat dinner while blindfolded in a dark restaurant. Hydroponic growing flips this entire script. Every root gets access to the exact same nutrient cocktail. No searching required. Plants can focus their energy on growing instead of hunting for their next meal. The results speak for themselves. Hydroponic plants often grow faster and bigger than their soil-bound cousins. But the real shocker comes when you look at water usage. Traditional agriculture is incredibly thirsty. Most of the water you pour on soil either evaporates into the air or drains away where roots can't reach it. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. Most of it ends up everywhere except where you need it. Hydroponics uses up to 90% less water than traditional soil growing. How is this possible? Simple. The water stays in the system. Instead of disappearing into the ground or evaporating from exposed soil surfaces, it circulates directly to the roots and back again. Every drop has a job, and every drop gets used efficiently. This efficiency isn't just good for your water bill. It's becoming crucial for our planet. With water scarcity affecting more regions every year, growing more food with less water isn't just smart, it's necessary. Now, you might be thinking this sounds complicated, like you need a chemistry degree and a greenhouse full of expensive equipment. Well, that's where the magic really happens. Some of the best hydroponic growing happens right on your kitchen counter with nothing more than a glass jar and tap water. Certain plants have evolved to be incredibly adaptable. They can transition from soil to water so easily, you'd think they were waiting for the invitation. Herbs like basil and mint practically jump into water containers. Many houseplants actually prefer the consistent moisture and nutrients that water growing provides. The science behind this adaptability goes back millions of years. Plants originally evolved in aquatic environments before they conquered land. Those ancient survival mechanisms are still coded into their DNA. Give them the right conditions, and they'll happily return to their watery roots. Then there's the oxygen factor that most people miss. Plant roots need to breathe just like we do. In waterlogged soil, roots often suffocate because there's no airspace. But in a properly set up hydroponic system, roots get both water and oxygen. They're living their best life. Some vegetables actually grow better in water than in soil. This isn't just convenient, it's revolutionary for anyone who wants fresh food year-round without dealing with dirt, pests, or weather conditions. Your kitchen can become a production facility that never closes. The beauty of water growing lies in its simplicity. You can see exactly what's happening with the roots. No guessing if the plant is getting enough water or nutrients. No wondering if some underground pest is causing problems. Everything happens in plain sight. But which plants actually work for this water-only approach? That's where most people get stuck, staring at their herb collection and wondering where to start. The good news is that your kitchen probably already contains several plants that are practically begging to be grown this way. Now that you understand why plants don't actually need soil to survive, let's jump into the fun part. Your kitchen is about to become a mini greenhouse, and you won't need to buy a single seed. Walk over to your refrigerator right now. Open it up. See those green onions sitting in the crisper drawer, the ones you bought 3 days ago and forgot about? Well, they're about to become your first hydroponic success story. Cut off the white bulb part at the bottom, leaving about an inch of the roots attached. Drop it in a glass jar with enough water to cover just the roots. Within 48 hours, you'll see bright green shoots pushing up like tiny green rockets. Makes sense, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Those green onions will keep growing and growing. You can harvest the green tops multiple times, and they'll just keep coming back. It's like having a renewable food source that cost you nothing after that initial grocery store purchase. Then there's basil, which might just be the overachiever of the water-growing world. Take a 4-inch cutting from any basil plant. Even the wilted stuff from the grocery store works. Strip off the bottom leaves, leaving just the top ones. Plop it in a clear glass with water covering the stem. The magic happens fast. Within a week, you'll see white, fuzzy roots spreading through the water like tiny underwater Christmas trees. And the weird part is, basil grown in water often tastes more intense than soil-grown basil. Something about those roots getting direct access to nutrients makes the leaves pack more flavor punch. Your pasta sauce will thank you later. Let's not forget mint, which behaves like the enthusiastic friend who shows up early to every party. This stuff is almost aggressive about growing in water. Take any mint cutting, spearmint, peppermint, chocolate mint, whatever you can find. Stick it in water, and within days, you'll have roots everywhere. Seriously, mint roots spread so fast in water that you might start wondering if you've created a monster. The best part about mint? It's practically bulletproof. Forget to change the water for 2 weeks, mint doesn't care. Put it in a spot that's too dark, mint adapts. This plant wants to live so badly that it'll thrive just to spite you. Well, oregano takes a slightly different approach. It's the steady, reliable friend of the herb world. Oregano cuttings root slower than basil or mint. We're talking 2 to 3 weeks instead of 1. But once those roots establish, you've got yourself a permanent oregano supply. Mediterranean dishes become infinitely more affordable when you're not buying those overpriced little plastic containers from the store. Time follows oregano's lead, but with even more patience required. This herb teaches you that good things come to those who wait. Thyme cuttings can take up to a month to develop strong roots, but the payoff is worth it. Fresh thyme elevates everything from roasted vegetables to homemade bread. Plus, there's something deeply satisfying about snipping herbs from your own windowsill garden while cooking dinner. But why stop at the obvious herbs? Rosemary, that woody, fragrant herb that costs a fortune at grocery stores, also roots in water. It takes longer, sometimes 6 to 8 weeks, but rosemary cuttings will eventually develop roots if you're patient enough. The trick is using younger, greener stems rather than the old woody ones. Here's something most people don't realize. You can create an endless cycle with these herbs. Once your water-grown basil gets big enough, take more cuttings from it, root those in separate containers. Suddenly you've got multiple basil plants, all descendants of that original grocery store purchase. It's like botanical multiplication. The beauty of kitchen herbs in water is their forgiving nature. Miss a day of checking on them? No problem. Forget to add fresh water, they'll survive. Compare that to soil-grown herbs that need perfect drainage, specific soil types, and precise watering schedules. Water-grown herbs just want basic attention and clean water every week or so. And let's talk about the visual appeal for a second. Glass jars lined up on a sunny windowsill, each containing different herbs with their roots visible through the clear water. It's like having living art in your kitchen. Guests always ask about them. Kids get fascinated watching the roots grow. Even teenagers put down their phones to check out the cool plant science experiment. The year-round aspect changes everything about cooking. January snowstorm outside, fresh basil for your pizza. August heat wave, cool mint for iced tea. No more paying premium prices for herbs that traveled thousands of miles to reach your grocery store. Of course, herbs are just the beginning. Once you see how easily these kitchen staples adapt to water life, you'll start eyeing other foods in your refrigerator with new curiosity. That leftover celery might just surprise you with what it can do. While fresh herbs from your kitchen window are pretty impressive, they're just the beginning. You probably walk past dozens of plants at the grocery store that could become your next hydroponic project. The produce section is basically a treasure trove of potential water-grown plants waiting to be discovered. Take that head of lettuce you bought for tonight's salad. Don't toss the base into the compost bin just yet. That stumpy little end piece, it's got life left in it. Place the bottom inch of romaine or butter lettuce in a shallow dish with about half an inch of water. Change the water every couple days, and within a week, you'll see tiny green leaves pushing up from the center. The whole thing looks like a miniature lettuce garden sprouting right on your counter. Celery works the same magic, but it's even more dramatic. Cut off the bottom 2 inches of your celery bunch and stick it in water. The outer stalks might look a bit sad at first, but the center will surprise you. New stalks start growing from the middle within days, reaching upward like they're celebrating their second chance at life. Some people get so excited watching celery regrow that they forget to actually eat it. Then there's bok choy, which might be the overachiever of the vegetable world when it comes to water propagation. Slice off the bottom inch and pop it in a jar with water covering just the roots. The leaves that emerge are tender and perfect for stir fries. Leeks follow similar rules, though they take their sweet time about it, but patience pays off when you see those long green shoots pushing up from what looked like kitchen scraps. Now here's where things get interesting. Sweet potatoes aren't just for Thanksgiving anymore. Stick toothpicks around the middle of a sweet potato and suspend it over a glass of water with the bottom half submerged. What happens next is pure plant theater. Vines cascade down like a living waterfall, and the heart-shaped leaves create one of the most beautiful houseplants you'll ever grow. The whole setup looks so intentional that guests will assume you pay good money for it at some fancy plant shop. Lemongrass brings its own kind of excitement to water growing. Those thick stalks you buy for Thai cooking, they're basically plant cuttings in disguise. Remove the outer layers until you find the tender core, then place the bottom inch in water. The roots show up first, followed by fresh green shoots that smell incredible when you brush against them. You'll have enough lemongrass to flavor curries for months, but wait until you hear about pineapples. Yes, actual pineapples. Twist off the crown from a fresh pineapple, remove the bottom few layers of leaves, and let it dry for a day. Then, place it in water and wait. The roots take forever to appear, sometimes weeks, but when they do, you've got yourself a legitimate tropical plant. Will it ever produce fruit? Maybe in a few years if you're lucky. Does it look amazing sitting in a clear vase on your kitchen table? Absolutely. The weird part is how these everyday vegetables seem to know exactly what to do in water. There's no instruction manual for a celery base, yet it immediately starts growing new stalks. Sweet potatoes don't need anyone to tell them which end goes in the water. They just figure it out and start producing those gorgeous trailing vines. What makes this even more appealing is the zero waste aspect of it all. Instead of throwing away vegetable scraps, you're turning them into living plants that keep producing food. That bok choy base gives you fresh greens for weeks. The lemongrass keeps growing new shoots you can harvest. Even the lettuce provides enough leaves for several small salads before it needs replacing. Some of these water-grown vegetables actually taste better than their soil-grown counterparts. The lettuce leaves come out crisp and mild. Fresh lemongrass has a bright, clean flavor that puts the dried stuff to shame. The bok choy is tender enough to eat raw in salads. The best part about starting with these unusual edibles is how they change your relationship with food waste. You start looking at vegetable scraps differently, wondering what else might regrow in water. That onion that's starting to sprout, potential green onions, the carrot tops you usually discard, they might just surprise you. These plants also bridge the gap between kitchen gardening and serious hydroponics. You're learning how plants respond to water only growing without any pressure to keep expensive houseplants alive. If the celery doesn't work out, you're only out a few cents worth of vegetable scraps. Ready to move beyond the kitchen? The world of ornamental houseplants offers even more dramatic possibilities for water growing, with some varieties that will completely change how you think about indoor gardening. After experimenting with herbs and discovering those surprising edible options, you're probably wondering what else can transform your living space into a green paradise. Well, houseplants take water growing to a whole new level of gorgeous. Pothos might just be the ultimate beginner's dream plant. These trailing beauties are practically indestructible when grown in water. Drop a cutting into any glass jar, and within days, you'll see tiny white roots sprouting like crazy. The best part? Pothos actually seems to prefer water over soil sometimes. Those heart-shaped leaves stay glossy and vibrant for months, even years, in nothing but H2O. Your friends will think you're some kind of plant wizard when they see these cascading from shelves and mantels, but here's where things get really interesting. Philodendrons are pothos' sophisticated cousins, and they're equally obsessed with water life. The heartleaf variety creates these stunning waterfalls of green that look expensive but cost almost nothing to maintain. Then, there's the velvet leaf philodendron micans. Those leaves shimmer with this bronze-green iridescence that changes depending on the light. Stick a cutting in water, and you'll have Instagram-worthy plant displays that make people ask where you bought such exotic specimens. Spider plants bring their own brand of magic to water growing. These striped beauties don't just survive in water, they throw parties. The mother plant sends out these long runners with baby spider plants dangling like little green ornaments. Pop those babies into water glasses, and suddenly you've got a whole spider plant nursery happening on your windowsill. Within weeks, each baby develops its own root system and becomes ready to gift to friends or spread throughout your home. Lucky bamboo deserves special mention because it's probably the most famous water-only plant on the planet. Those twisted, braided stalks sitting in glass containers? They're not actually bamboo at all. They're a type of Dracaena that just happens to look bamboo-ish. These plants can live for years in nothing but water, growing taller and sprouting new shoots. The crazy part is how they respond to different water levels and container shapes, almost like they're custom designing themselves for your space. Now, if you want to make a real statement, Monstera deliciosa will blow minds. Yes, that trendy Swiss cheese plant with the giant split leaves can actually survive in water for months. Taking a cutting from an established Monstera and watching it develop roots in a clear vase is like watching slow-motion plant theater. Those aerial roots grow thick and strong, creating this incredible underwater root sculpture while the leaves above get bigger and develop more splits. It's temporary. Eventually, you'll want to pot it. But the water phase creates the most stunning display. The secret with all these houseplants is understanding that water isn't just keeping them alive, it's actually their preferred growing medium in many cases. Roots in water can access nutrients and oxygen more efficiently than struggling through dense soil. They grow faster, cleaner, and often healthier than their dirt-dwelling relatives. What makes water-grown houseplants particularly awesome is how they solve about a dozen household problems simultaneously. No more mysterious gnats flying around your plants. Those come from soil. No more wondering if you're overwatering or underwatering. You can literally see the water level. No more messy repotting sessions or buying bags of potting mix. And here's something nobody talks about. Water plants are practically pet-proof. Cats can't dig in them, and dogs can't scatter soil everywhere. The visual impact is honestly unmatched. Clear glass containers let you see the entire plant, roots and all. It's like having living sculptures that change and grow over time. You can group different plants in matching vases for a cohesive look, or mix container styles for an eclectic vibe. The roots themselves become part of the decoration, creating these intricate underwater gardens that are just as beautiful as the foliage above. Then, there's the propagation addiction that happens. Once you realize how easy it is to multiply these plants, you'll find yourself taking cuttings constantly. One pothos becomes 5 pothos, becomes a small jungle of trailing green throughout your entire home. Friends start requesting plant gifts because your success rate is basically 100%. Water-grown houseplants also adapt to different light conditions better than soil plants. They're not dealing with soil pH issues or drainage problems, so they can focus their energy on adjusting to whatever light situation you've got going on. But houseplants are just the beginning of water growing's visual possibilities. Wait until you discover how colorful foliage plants and fast-propagating varieties can turn any corner of your home into a vibrant, ever-changing display that makes traditional potted plants look almost boring by comparison. Want to add some serious pizzazz to your water garden? These colorful foliage plants will make your friends think you've hired a professional plant stylist. Most houseplants come in predictable shades of green, but the plants we're about to explore burst with purples, reds, yellows, and patterns that look almost too wild to be real. Coleus might just be the show-off of the water plant world. This plant doesn't mess around when it comes to color combinations. You'll find varieties with lime green edges and burgundy centers, or bright yellow leaves with purple veins running through them like tiny lightning bolts. The best part? Coleus roots faster than gossip spreads in a small town. Drop a cutting in water, and within 5 days, you'll see white roots shooting out like they're racing each other to the bottom of your container. Here's what makes Coleus particularly exciting for water growing. It actually gets more vibrant colors when grown hydroponically. The leaves stay crisp, and the patterns become more defined. No soil means no muddy colors, just pure plant artistry floating in your glass containers. Then there's Tradescantia, which goes by about 15 different common names, but let's stick with the easiest one to pronounce. This trailing beauty comes in varieties that look like they've been painted with purple and silver stripes. Some types have leaves so deep purple they're almost black, while others flash bright green with cream-colored edges that catch light like tiny mirrors. What's wild about Tradescantia is how it multiplies in water. Each node along the stem can produce roots, which means one cutting quickly becomes a cascading waterfall of colorful foliage. Place it in a tall vase and watch those trailing stems create a living curtain that changes the entire mood of a room. Purple heart plant takes the drama up another notch. Its scientific name is Setchrisa pallida, but nobody calls it that because purple heart tells you everything you need to know. The entire plant, stems, leaves, even the tiny roots, shows up in shades of deep magenta and violet. When sunlight hits those purple leaves, they practically glow. This plant grows so aggressively in water that you'll need to trim it regularly or risk having it take over your entire windowsill. But that's not necessarily a bad problem to have, especially since every cutting you trim off can start a new plant for friends or other rooms in your house. Begonias bring a completely different vibe to water growing. While most people think of begonias as outdoor flowering plants, many varieties thrive as foliage houseplants in water. Rex begonias, in particular, show off leaves with patterns that look hand-painted by artists. You'll find varieties with silver leaves and dark green veins or burgundy centers surrounded by bright pink edges. The trick with begonias in water is choosing the right cutting. You want stems with several leaf nodes, and surprisingly, begonias can even grow new plants from single leaves if you know the technique. Float a healthy begonia leaf on water's surface with the stem end submerged, and tiny plantlets will eventually sprout from the base. Wandering Jew plant, though many gardeners now call it inch plant, deserves special mention for its incredible adaptability to water culture. This plant comes in so many color variations, it's like having a living kaleidoscope collection. Some varieties have green leaves with silver stripes, others flash purple undersides with green tops, and the really fancy ones combine all these colors and patterns that seem almost too complex for nature to have designed. What makes inch plant particularly satisfying for water growing is its speed. These plants grow so fast you can practically watch them expand day by day. A single cutting placed in water on Monday will have visible new growth by Friday, and within a month, you'll have a full bushy plant that looks like it's been growing for years. The secret to getting the most vibrant colors from all these foliage plants lies in light placement. Too much direct sun will fade those brilliant purples and reds, but too little light makes the patterns disappear entirely. Bright indirect light near a window works perfectly, giving you those Instagram-worthy colors without the stress of sunburn damage. These fast-propagating colorful plants create the perfect bridge between basic green houseplants and the more challenging varieties. They're forgiving enough for beginners, but dramatic enough to impress experienced plant collectors. Plus, their rapid growth means you'll have plenty of cuttings to share, trade, or use to fill other containers around your home. But what if you want to step beyond foliage and try your hand at actual flowers blooming in water containers? The flowering plants we'll explore next will challenge everything you thought you knew about what's possible in simple water setups. Who says flowers need dirt to put on a show? While most people assume blooming plants demand rich soil and perfect conditions, some of the most stunning flowering varieties actually thrive in nothing but water. These aren't your typical leafy houseplants. We're talking about genuine flower power that'll brighten your kitchen windowsill or living room table. Impatiens might surprise you the most. These cheerful little bloomers that usually fill garden beds will happily grow roots in the simple glass of water. Snip a healthy stem about 4 inches long, remove the bottom leaves, and plunk it into fresh water. Within days, you'll see tiny white roots sprouting. The amazing part? They often keep producing their colorful flowers even indoors. Pink, red, white, or orange blooms can appear right there in your water container. Sure, they won't be as massive as outdoor garden varieties, but the fact that they bloom at all feels like magic. Then there's the peace lily, which basically laughs at the idea that it needs soil to survive. This elegant plant with its distinctive white flower spathes can live in water for months, even years. The trick is keeping those gorgeous leaves above the waterline while letting the roots do their thing below. Peace lilies are practically indestructible in water culture, and their white flowers, technically modified leaves called spathes, add instant sophistication to any room. Plus, they're famous air purifiers, so you're getting beauty and cleaner air in one package. But here's where things get really interesting. Anthurium plants are absolute showstoppers in water. These tropical beauties sport those glossy, heart-shaped red flowers that look almost plastic. They're so perfect. Most people spend $30 or more on these at fancy plant shops, assuming they need expensive potting mix and humidity trays. Wrong. Anthurium cuttings root readily in water and will continue producing those stunning red blooms for months. The waxy flowers last for weeks at a time, making this one of the most rewarding water plants you can grow. African violets present a completely different challenge, but one that's totally doable. You can't just stick a stem cutting in water like other plants. Instead, you need to carefully float a healthy leaf on the water's surface. The leaf stem should barely touch the water while the fuzzy leaf stays completely dry. It sounds finicky, and honestly, it kind of is, but when tiny plantlets start forming where the leaf meets the water, you'll feel like a plant wizard. These baby violets can eventually produce their classic purple, pink, or white flowers, even in their water environment. Christmas cactus segments offer another fascinating experiment in water flowering. These aren't your typical desert cacti, they're actually tropical plants that bloom around the holidays. Break off a few segments, they snap apart naturally at the joints, and let them sit in water. The segments will develop roots within weeks, and if you're lucky with timing and light conditions, you might even get those spectacular tubular flowers in red, pink, or white. Christmas cactus is practically bulletproof once it gets going, and the cascading segments create beautiful displays in tall vases. What makes flowering plants in water so compelling is that you get to watch the entire process unfold. Every new root, every developing bud, every opening flower happens right before your eyes. There's no guessing what's happening beneath the soil surface. Everything is visible and immediate. When your impatiens produces its first water-grown flower, or your anthurium unfurls a new red bloom, you'll understand why this hobby becomes addictive. The key with flowering water plants is managing expectations about bloom frequency and size. These plants are putting energy into developing new root systems while trying to flower, so the blooms might be smaller or less frequent than soil-grown versions. That's perfectly normal. Think of it as getting bonus flowers rather than expecting a full garden display. Most flowering water plants prefer bright, indirect light, the kind you get near a north-facing window or a few feet back from a sunny southern exposure. Too much direct sun can stress the plants and heat up the water, while too little light means fewer or no flowers. Room temperature water works best, and you'll want to change it weekly, just like with other water plants. Temperature consistency matters more with flowering varieties than purely foliage plants. Big temperature swings can cause flower buds to drop or prevent blooming altogether. Keep your water flowers away from heating vents, drafty windows, or anywhere the temperature fluctuates dramatically throughout the day. While flowers definitely steal the show, don't overlook the plants that blur the line between indoor and outdoor growing. Some of the most impressive water plants aren't traditional houseplants at all. They're wild vines and climbers that adapt surprisingly well to indoor water culture. Want to turn your home into a jungle without the mess of soil? Vines and climbing plants offer the perfect solution. These natural climbers don't just grow, they transform spaces with their trailing beauty while thriving in nothing but water. The best part? Most of them root faster than you'd expect. English ivy tops the list for good reason. This stuff is practically unstoppable once it gets going in water. Snip a 6-inch piece from any ivy plant and drop it in a jar. Within 2 weeks, you'll see white roots sprouting from the nodes along the stem. The secret lies in those little bumps you notice on ivy stems. Each one is a potential root factory waiting for water contact. English ivy doesn't mess around. It sends out roots aggressively and starts climbing whatever support you give it. But here's where it gets interesting. Hoya plants, also called wax plants, bring something totally different to your water garden. These thick, waxy leaves store moisture like tiny water balloons, making them incredibly resilient in hydroponic setups. Take a cutting with at least 2 sets of leaves and submerge the bottom inch in water. Hoya roots develop slowly, sometimes taking a month, but once they establish, these plants become nearly indestructible. The waxy coating on their leaves actually helps prevent water loss, which explains why they adapt so well to water-only growing. Then there's Syngonium, known as arrowhead vine for its distinctive leaf shape. This plant pulls off a neat trick. Its leaves change shape as it matures. Young Syngonium starts with simple arrowhead leaves, but as it climbs and ages, the leaves develop deep splits and become more complex. In water, this transformation happens right before your eyes. The roots form quickly, usually within 10 days, and the plant immediately starts reaching for something to climb. Devil's ivy deserves its reputation as one of the easiest plants on earth. Some people confuse it with pothos since they look similar, but devil's ivy has slightly different leaf patterns and grows even more aggressively. Drop a cutting in water and forget about it for weeks. This plant will not only survive, but thrive with complete neglect. The roots grow so fast, you can almost watch them extend day by day. Devil's ivy earned its name because it's nearly impossible to kill, even if you try. Now here's something most people don't know about grapevines. Yes, actual grape-producing vines can start from water propagation. You need woody cuttings taken during dormant season, typically late winter. These cuttings look completely dead, just brown sticks, but place them in water and wait. After several weeks, tiny green buds will break through the bark, followed by roots. Growing grapes hydroponically requires patience, but imagine having fresh grape clusters hanging in your living room. The science behind why vines adapt so well to water involves their natural climbing strategy. Most climbing plants evolved to send out aerial roots that grab onto trees, rocks, or other surfaces. These aerial roots are already programmed to function in humid, water-rich environments. When you place vine cuttings in water, you're essentially mimicking their natural habitat where moisture is abundant and nutrients flow freely. What makes vines particularly suited for indoor water gardens is their growth pattern. Unlike bushy plants that need space in all directions, vines grow up and out, maximizing your green space without taking up floor area. A single vine cutting can eventually cover an entire wall or window frame, creating a living curtain effect that's impossible to achieve with other plant types. Here's a pro tip that changes everything. Most vines root better when you scrape the bottom inch of stem before placing it in water. Use your fingernail or a knife to gently scratch the bark or outer layer. This exposes the cambium layer underneath, which contains the cells responsible for root development. It's like giving the plant a head start on the rooting process. The care requirements for water-grown vines are refreshingly simple. Change the water weekly, keep containers away from direct sunlight to prevent algae, and watch for root development. Most vines signal their happiness by producing new growth within the first month. Pale or yellowing leaves usually mean the plant needs diluted liquid fertilizer added to its water. One surprising benefit of growing vines in water is pest control. Soil-dwelling insects like fungus gnats can't establish themselves in water-only setups. Spider mites, which love dusty soil conditions, rarely bother water-grown plants. Your vines stay cleaner and healthier without the typical houseplant pest issues. These climbing beauties set the stage perfectly for plants that do double duty, looking gorgeous while actively cleaning your indoor air. Speaking of multitasking plants, wait until you discover which common houseplants can filter toxins from your home while thriving in simple water setups. Want to know something fascinating? The same plants that scrub toxins from your air can do it just as well when they're growing in water. That's right, these green cleaning machines don't need dirt to work their magic. They'll happily purify your indoor air while showing off their roots in a crystal clear vase. Snake plants are probably the most famous air purifiers on the planet. Everyone knows them as those tall, sword-like plants that seem impossible to kill. But here's what most people don't realize. You can propagate snake plant cuttings directly in water, and they'll still filter out formaldehyde and benzene from your air. Just cut a healthy leaf into 3-inch sections, stick them in water, and wait. The weird part is that new plants will grow from the bottom of each cutting, creating mini snake plants that work overtime to clean your space. Then there's the peace lily, a total overachiever in the detox department. NASA actually ranked peace lilies as one of the top air cleaning houseplants because they remove ammonia, acetone, and alcohol vapors. Makes sense, right? Well, these beauties can live in water for months while doing this important work. The trick is keeping those gorgeous white flowers and broadleaves completely above the waterline. Let them touch the water, and you'll have a mushy mess instead of a toxin-fighting champion. Chinese evergreen plants deserve way more credit than they get. These stunning foliage plants come in silver, pink, and red patterns that look like someone painted them by hand, but beyond their good looks, they're secretly removing volatile organic compounds from your home's air. VOCs sound scary because they come from cleaning products, paints, and even furniture. Chinese evergreens laugh at these toxins while rooting happily in plain water. The propagation process is almost ridiculously easy. Snip a stem with a few leaves, plunk it in water, and watch those white roots appear within days. Let's not forget about bamboo palm, though getting cuttings to root in water takes some patience. This plant is like the quiet hero of air purification. It doesn't make a big fuss, but it's working around the clock to filter out formaldehyde and xylene. Young bamboo palm shoots sometimes root in water if you catch them at just the right moment. The success rate isn't perfect, but when it works, you've got a living air filter that grows more beautiful every week. And the weird part is that aloe vera, yes, the same plant you reach for when you get sunburned, can start its air cleaning journey in water. Aloe removes formaldehyde from indoor air while producing those thick, healing leaves we all love. Baby aloe shoots will develop roots in water before you transplant them to soil. During those weeks in water, they're already beginning their work as tiny toxin fighters, but here's where things get really interesting. Most people think these plants need fancy equipment or special conditions to purify air. Wrong. A peace lily sitting in a mason jar on your kitchen counter is filtering air just as effectively as one planted in expensive potting mix. The roots are doing their job, the leaves are processing air, and you get to watch the whole system work through clear glass. The science behind this is actually pretty cool. Plants don't just absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. They're constantly pulling other chemicals from the air through their leaves and breaking them down into harmless compounds. The NASA Clean Air Study proved that common houseplants can remove up to 87% of air toxins within 24 hours. That's serious cleaning power disguised as home decor. What makes water propagation even better for air purifiers is that you can see exactly what's happening with the root system. Healthy roots mean a healthy plant, and healthy plants clean air more effectively. When roots start looking brown or slimy in water, you know immediately that something's wrong. With soil-planted purifiers, root problems stay hidden until the whole plant starts looking sick. The best part about growing air purifiers in water is mobility. You can move them to wherever you need the most help. Near the printer that gives off chemical smells, by the kitchen where cooking odors linger, or in the bedroom where you want the cleanest possible air for sleeping. Try doing that with a heavy potted plant. These living air filters work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, asking for nothing more than fresh water and indirect light. They're like having a team of tiny environmental engineers working for free in your home. The roots keep growing, the leaves keep filtering, and your air keeps getting cleaner. Speaking of free labor, there's a whole world of rare and exotic plants that can also thrive in water. Some so unusual, they'll make your guests do double takes. Now that you've mastered the basics with pothos and herbs, let's venture into territory most people never think about. These plants aren't your typical houseplant section finds. They're the conversation starters, the wait. You can grow that in water? Plants that make visitors do double takes. Pitcher plants sound like something from a horror movie, but they're actually gentle giants in the water-growing world. These carnivorous beauties naturally live in nutrient-poor bogs where they've evolved to catch insects for food. The weird part? They absolutely love pure water. While most plants throw tantrums without added nutrients, pitcher plants prefer their water clean and simple. Their modified leaves form deep cups that naturally collect rainwater in the wild, so your glass container mimics their perfect environment. Just don't expect them to gobble up every fly in your house. They're more like elegant insect traps than aggressive hunters. Then there's the lucky shamrock, which isn't actually shamrock at all. It's oxalis, and those deep purple leaves with bright green undersides create stunning color combinations in clear vases. The triangular leaves fold up at night like tiny umbrellas, giving you a daily show of plant movement. Most people kill these by overwatering in soil, but in water, they flourish. The roots develop quickly, and you get to watch the entire process through glass walls. Baby's tears might sound delicate, but this plant creates magic in water containers. Those tiny round leaves cascade like a living waterfall, forming dense mats of bright green foliage. The individual leaves are smaller than your pinky nail, creating an almost moss-like texture that's incredibly satisfying to touch. In water, baby's tears can fill an entire vase within months, creating what looks like an underwater forest. The trick is keeping the stems submerged while letting the leaf masses float and trail. Well, if you want something that really makes people stop and stare, papyrus is your answer. This is the same plant ancient Egyptians used to make paper thousands of years ago. The tall, grassy stems topped with umbrella-like clusters look like they belong in a museum, not your living room. Papyrus is technically a sedge, meaning it naturally grows with its roots underwater and stems reaching skyward. In a tall vase, it creates dramatic vertical lines that interior designers charge serious money to achieve. The stems can reach 3 feet tall in the right conditions, making quite the statement piece. But why stop at dramatic when you can go downright mysterious? Nerve plant, or Photonia, comes with leaves so intricately patterned they look hand-painted. White, pink, or red veins create geometric designs across deep green leaves. These plants earned their name because the vein patterns resemble nervous systems under a microscope. In soil, they're notoriously fussy about humidity and watering. In water, still tricky, but manageable if you understand their needs. The challenge with nerve plants lies in their tropical origins. They crave consistency, same light, same temperature, same everything. Any sudden changes, and those gorgeous leaves start dropping faster than autumn oak trees. However, once you find their sweet spot, watching new leaves unfurl with their intricate patterns is like unwrapping tiny presents every few days. Here's something most people don't realize about these exotic water plants. They often perform better than their soil-grown cousins because you control every variable. Soil can harbor pests, diseases, and unpredictable nutrient levels. Water gives you complete transparency, literally. You see exactly what's happening with the roots when they need attention and how they're responding to changes. The pitcher plant's roots will stay relatively small and white, focusing energy on those spectacular trap leaves instead. Lucky shamrock develops thick, fleshy roots that store water and nutrients like tiny underground balloons. Baby's tears creates a mesh network of fine roots that look like delicate lacework through glass. Papyrus sends out thick anchor-like roots that can support those tall stems even in strong air currents. What makes these plants truly special isn't just their unusual looks, it's their conversation-starting power. Guests always ask about the purple leaf plant that moves or the carnivorous pitcher sitting peacefully in water. These aren't just decorations, they're living curiosities that spark genuine interest in plant science. Each of these exotic options requires slightly different approaches, but they share one common trait. They reward patience with spectacular results. Unlike fast-growing herbs or predictable pothos, these plants develop character slowly, revealing new aspects of their personalities over months rather than weeks. The real magic happens when you start combining different exotic species in group displays, creating mini ecosystems that showcase the incredible diversity of water-loving plants. But before you start mixing and matching these unusual specimens, there are some crucial care details that can make the difference between thriving exotic displays and expensive disappointments. You've made it this far, picked your favorite water plants, and now you're wondering why your mint looks more like sad lettuce after 2 weeks. Don't worry, every hydroponic rookie makes the same mistakes. The difference between thriving plants and expensive compost sitting in pretty jars comes down to a few simple rules that most people ignore. Water changes are your plant's lifeline, not just a suggestion. That crystal clear water you started with? After a week, it's basically plant soup mixed with bacteria you can't see. Algae starts forming faster than you'd think, especially if your jar sits near a window. Green, slimy water isn't just ugly. It steals oxygen from your plant's roots and creates the perfect environment for root rot. Fresh water every 7 days keeps things clean and gives your plants the oxygen they desperately need. But here's where it gets interesting. Plain water won't cut it long term. Your plants were getting nutrients from soil before, and now they're basically living on water and hope. Liquid fertilizer becomes crucial after the first month, but not the way you might expect. Most people dump way too much, thinking more equals better growth. Wrong move. A quarter-strength liquid fertilizer once a month gives plants what they need without burning their delicate water roots. Then there's the oxygen situation that trips up almost everyone. Roots need to breathe, which sounds weird since they're sitting in water. The trick is leaving space between the water line and the top of your container. That gap allows oxygen to reach the upper roots and prevents that suffocating feeling that kills plants faster than drought. Think of it like this: even fish need oxygen in their water, and your plant roots aren't much different. Sunlight becomes a balancing act when you're growing in clear containers. Plants love light, but direct sun through glass creates a greenhouse effect that literally cooks your roots. Water heats up fast in bright windows, and hot water holds less oxygen than cool water. Your plants end up stressed, overheated, and gasping for air. Bright, indirect light keeps them happy without turning your containers into root stew. The weird part is how nutrients show up in your plants before problems get serious. Pale, yellowing leaves usually mean your plant is hungry, not dying. Dark green leaves that suddenly go light green are crying out for fertilizer. Brown leaf tips often signal too much fertilizer or water that's too hot. Plants are surprisingly good at telling you what's wrong if you know how to read the signs. Root health matters more than pretty leaves when you're growing hydroponically. Healthy roots look white or cream-colored and feel firm when you touch them. Brown, mushy, or smelly roots mean trouble is brewing. Sometimes you can save a plant by trimming off the bad roots and starting fresh with clean water, but prevention beats surgery every time. Temperature swings mess with water plants more than soil plants. Room temperature water is your safest bet. Not cold from the tap, not warm from sitting in the sun. Consistent temperatures keep plants comfortable and reduce stress that makes them vulnerable to problems. Let's not forget the container itself plays a bigger role than most people realize. Clear glass looks beautiful but promotes algae growth when light hits the water. Darker containers or covering clear ones with decorative paper can prevent that green slime problem. Size matters too. Larger containers stay more stable and give roots room to spread out. Water quality varies depending on where you live, and some tap water contains chemicals that plants hate. Chlorine doesn't kill plants instantly, but it doesn't help them thrive either. Letting tap water sit out overnight allows chlorine to evaporate, or you can use filtered water if your tap water tastes heavily treated. Overcrowding becomes tempting when your plants start looking amazing. Multiple cuttings in one jar might seem efficient, but competing roots create problems. Each plant needs space to develop a healthy root system without fighting its neighbors for nutrients and oxygen. The biggest mistake? Giving up too early when plants look stressed during their transition period. Moving from soil to water shocks most plants initially. They might drop leaves, look wilted, or seem unhappy for the first 2 weeks. This is normal adaptation, not plant failure. Patience during this adjustment period separates successful hydroponic growers from those who blame themselves for killing everything green. Most care guides make hydroponic growing sound complicated with special equipment and precise measurements. Really, it's about consistency with the basics. Fresh water, appropriate light, monthly feeding, and watching for simple warning signs. Plants want to grow and will forgive minor mistakes if you keep their basic needs met. With these fundamentals down, you're ready to expand beyond the basics and discover some advanced techniques that can take your water growing to the next level.